Hey there, I'm Sully, and welcome to the Gun Club. Good evening, everybody. We're going to have a little bit of a live stream tonight. I know Monday night's not usually one of the nights I'm on, but we had a lot going on the last couple of weeks, and I don't know. I think a lot of people over the weekend saw we had a special guest come in. We had Irv Gill from Black Belt Ammunition. He came in and did a presentation on some of his stuff. It was very interesting, nice change of pace. And we had a lot of our usual content that was sort of pushed aside over that. And, I didn't mind at all pushing it aside and giving Irv the floor for the night. He was very nice about it. And I actually learned a little bit about different ammunition and different configurations. And I'm looking forward to, I know he was going to send me some stuff to test. And once we get it out to the range, I run some testing. I'll let you know how it shoots for me. But it's interesting, again, supporting a small business, inviting him on and getting him a chance to sort of show his toys out there. And he was nice enough also to give us a little bit of a rebate on some stuff. So again, he got a promo code he gave us, code Sully10. You get a discount if you want to check his stuff out. Got his website going up on there on the stream. So we had a few things left over, and we had a few interesting things and some stuff I'd been working on for a while. So I wanted to sort of get it before it got cold, before we left it too all. If you want to go back, you can check out the stream with Irv a couple days ago. We did it Saturday evening, did it live both here on Rumble and on YouTube as well. And, learned, like I said, a little bit about ammunition from him and loading and reloading and how his business was founded. But so that was a nice change of pace. Now, tonight I've got a couple of incident reports, a couple of updates on a few things we've been covering and been talking about, and a couple of incidents that have gone on. And then I've got some stuff on the end that might be kind of interesting, both legal and legislative stuff, and some other things going. Kind of been looking through recently, and we'll get into that and see what we come up with for the rest of the evening. But I figured, hey, Monday evening, give everyone a little bit of extra gun content for this week because, hey, you might need it. So, without any further ado, I want to touch back on Baltimore. Now, if you don't remember, back on July 2nd of 2023, there was a block party in the Brooklyn Park area of Baltimore. It appears to be a municipal housing facility. And sadly, it left 2 dead and 28 injured. Well, a few things have come out since then, and I've been following it. They still have only arrested one individual, and they're not even sure if that individual, the 17-year-old, if he fired any shots. They just knew that he had multiple weapons, and they saw him on camera with multiple weapons. And so they've got the 17-year-old arrested. They don't know whether he shot anybody or if he did any of the shooting, but okay. But in checking back on that, I found these two quotes. Baltimore Sun. Police found and recovered casings from more than 12 different guns out and around on the scene there in Baltimore. More than a dozen different firearms. Now, we don't know they're all from that day, but they do know that they found at least evidence of at least 3 people shooting and ballistic evidence at 5 different locations. Now, when they say ballistic evidence, the way it was phrased, it sounded like piles of spent brass, fresh spent brass. Now, we can talk about this and society's problems and why this happened and isn't it awful? And there was some issue they're coming out. They're trying to pin it on the poor Baltimore PD. They did not have anyone on duty at this event. Why wouldn't they have anyone on duty at the event? Well, no one had told them it was happening this year. Apparently, no one contacted them to set up anything. They realized it was going on, but by the time they realized it was going on, it was already well underway, and so no law enforcement officers were there. Okay. Failure on their side, and they're getting plenty of heat on it and everything else. I get that. But why to have a neighborhood block party on a holiday afternoon on the 2nd of July do we need to contact the police to make sure we have enough people there? Well, ask that societal question. There's I hope that's a fair question to ask because I think that says a hell of a lot more about what's going on in society right there. That's number one. Number two, more than a dozen different guns on scene. Now, again, some could be old, some could be new. Maryland has some of the most restrictive firearms laws in the country. Now, they're not a New York or a California or Chicago. They're not safe like those cities. But personally, I looked into Maryland's laws. My South Carolina permit, my instructor permit, none of that is even accepted there. I can't carry concealed there. As a matter of fact, just a mere empty magazine, no bullets, no firearm, no nothing, an empty 13 round or 12 round magazine is a charge. So if I have just an empty magazine in the trunk of my car from when I went out to the range the other day that fell out of my range bag, I could be charged with that just by merely having that, not having it loaded with anything, not in a gun, no nothing, just the mere act of having that magazine empty in your possession in Maryland, that's chargeable. Anything over 10 rounds. So we look at how many shots were fired. Again, 2 dead, 28 injured, piles of brass everywhere. And it makes you kind of wonder how well Baltimore and Maryland as a whole, their gun control is working. Now, after the Supreme Court Bruin decision that basically stated these states need to issue permits, they shouldn't be may issue, it should be shall issue states. Maryland is trying to fight the CWP or concealed carry laws. They're trying to fight it even more to push against concealed carry. They're one of the most anti gun areas in the country. I know this. And it's primarily the eastern side. The western side, they'll let you they want you to carry anything you can. But the eastern side has given them enough power that they, make it real hard for anyone to really protect themselves, exercise their 2A rights. Yet this kind of crap is going on. So again, we come back to what we talked about, a couple weekends ago. I think it was on the 8th. Was look, tell me gun control laws work. They're not. One more time, we put all these laws into effect that do nothing but make nice victims unarmed for everyone else. 50 Shades of Stupid. It's ineffective and it does not work. But again, not to dwell on this one too much, we've talked about this incident enough. I just, again, wanted to go back and when there's talk about how much trouble their forensics team is having because they found casings for more than a dozen guns, and they know there are at least 3 groups of people shooting and ballistic evidence, significant amounts of ballistic evidence at 5 locations. So, yeah, pretty much turned that neighborhood into a war zone. And from reading the history of it, this is not an isolated incident. This is the big incident that we're hearing of. But again, they talk about, well, why do we have all these shootings? Well, the gun laws ain't working. We have, issues that need to be addressed. Gun laws ain't doing it. Now, we're going to move from there out to Cleveland. Now, to quote the old Drew Carey show, the Cleveland rocks, and let's see how well they rocked this one for us. Cleveland, Ohio, the night of July 9th, 2022, outside of a nightclub in downtown Cleveland, 9 people wounded. Fortunately, no fatalities that I read. The people wounded ranged in age from 23 to 28. And for whatever reason, the shooter had been either at the door or inside the club. He left there, walked out to his car, got a firearm out of the trunk, and proceeded to open fire towards a group of people. Basically, as they were exiting the club, he's firing on them. There were officers within 2 blocks of the scene. They responded immediately, began rendering aid. I've watched the body cam footage on it. These officers did a pretty exemplary job in light of the situation. The gentleman had not been captured immediately on scene, even though law enforcement was close. I'm sure, as you can imagine, in the time it took them to get there from just, running down the street from a block or 2 away, the people running every which way but loose, and the shooter disappeared into the crowd. They had some pretty good leads on him. They went back, went through camera footage, interior and exterior, and everything else. And fortunately, as of 7/11, 2 days later, after the shooting happened, we have a 25-year-old male arrested. Now, this male has an arrest record dating back to 2018. Now, if you think about my comments about a lot of the shootings that had happened in Fort Worth and the Baltimore and everything else, when you have active shooter, ditches the scene, everything else, chances are these are not decent law abiding gun owners. They're prohibited possessors, they're illegal guns, etc., etc. This gentleman's got his previous arrest record dating back to 2018. He's got two previous arrests just this year. He's out on bond on those. Assorted drug trafficking charges, failure to appear. I think there were a couple of assaults, things like that. A known to the police problem child with a long record, 5 years long. What's he doing running around with a gun? I'm here to tell you he likely did not buy it from a FFL, did not buy it legally, did not buy it from a dealer. This is the, dirty gun trade. And this is where, I keep talking about the people up on the Hill in Washington and the state legislatures can come up with anything they want to make these guns illegal, to make this stuff illegal, to make it harder to buy guns. The amount of illegal drug trade that's on the street, let's face it. How long did they have a war on drugs and they were going to make drugs illegal, right? We're going to take care of that problem completely. And all they did was what? Push everything underground, get a bunch of people in jail on possession and trafficking charges. Have they gotten rid of drugs? Hell, they can't keep the drugs out of locked prisons. How are they going to keep them off the street? They can't keep weapons out of being made in prison. How are they going to keep them off the street? So, again, not a typical firearms owner. This is one of those bad guys. Now, as I had mentioned, that city in Florida or the county in Florida, down where they were doing the Crime Stoppers, you find a firearm with a felon, you find a felon with a firearm, we'll give you 500. If he had been worth $500, maybe somebody would have, dropped a dime on him, made a little bit of money for their summer vacation. Maybe that gun would have been picked up by the PD. So, again, it fits. Now, we're going to go next step, and this one's real interesting. This is New York City. Now, if you're not familiar, New York is also rather strict about that whole pew-pew thing. They don't support the pew-pew life. Sucks, but it is what it is. One of the few things, I really hate about that city. And having grown up around New York, it's a problem. But we had a scooter shooter. And the scooter shooter, and we're going to call him that because, I won't give his name because I'm not going to give him any fame, notoriety. He goes on a multi-borough rampage. Now, if y'all ain't familiar with what a borough is, kind of like a county or a parish or whatever, bigger than a city, smaller than a state. Now, the city of New York is made up of 5 boroughs. We have Brooklyn, Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, and Staten Island. And that's the way you say it. And Staten Island. Well, he goes out, goes on a shooting rampage. He's riding around the city on a scooter, illegal moped, whatever. Got no plate on it. He's got a 9mm handgun with an extended magazine. And within 30 minutes, he goes 5 different places and sprays and prays. And by the time it's done, you've got an 86-year-old man dead, 3 individuals wounded, ages 21, 44, and 63. And, NYPD is saying, it's just totally random. We don't know why he could have done it. He has no real reason to do it. They're not really looking for a reason. Now, give NYPD a lot of credit. They did bust him very, very quickly. Hats off to the people who did that. They did their job and they did it well. And that's get this idiot off the street. Definitely. I'd love to have a little bit more investigation as to what prompts this idiot to go jump on the scooter and drive through 2 counties and just pull up at areas and start randomly shooting. And does he have a beef with someone or what? But he's in custody. He went to his arraignment. But again, we have a 9mm handgun with an extended magazine. Now, the gun is most likely illegal. They weren't familiar. They said at the time they were unable to determine if it had a serial number or if it was a ghost gun, something that was manufactured. Didn't know. They were sort of trying to find out if it had a serial number previously that was destroyed, damaged, or covered up, or if it had never had a serial number, i.e., one of those spooky ghost guns. But meanwhile, he's riding around on the scooter with no tags on it. And to look at it, I'm not sure it had many markings on it either. The interesting thing was the police focused on, we need to do something about these ghost guns. And this thing has no numbers on it. It was a ghost gun. Was he riding a ghost scooter? Again, I bring it up and I mention this because now ghost guns, could they be a problem? Maybe. And I say maybe. They pop up occasionally, not a frequent thing, not a regular thing. And if someone couldn't get a ghost gun, could they get another gun? Well, yeah, the guy did in the last incident. They all kind of had them in Baltimore, and so it is what it is. I don't think the ghost gun is the problem any more than the ghost scooter is the problem. We've got an idiot riding around who decides to do that. As far as his history, they couldn't really give us much that showed a lot for criminal history. I'm sort of following up on it, but it was just so interesting that here this person would go to 5 separate locations in 2 separate counties over the course of 30 minutes. Because that's what you want to do on a Saturday afternoon, just ride around and indiscriminately start shooting innocent people, right? I mean, these people are not normal gun owners. These are not us. This ain't us. And so from that standpoint, we always say gun control laws affect those people who choose to live by the law. This guy wasn't living by the law. I mean, he's riding a ghost scooter, just for starters. And, just drive around, start popping people. Mental health issue in New York City? Anybody? Oh, wait, haven't we had a couple of issues with various mental health incidents and mental health incidents on trains and everything else? And didn't we have a mental health issue all over that Philly case where that guy went out and started shooting and everything a couple weeks ago? Yeah. And his family even said they were worried about him and they tried to call to get him some help, and no one would do anything. Yeah, and wasn't that a mentally ill homeless man who got shot by a citizen in New York a couple weeks ago? The mental health epidemic seems to be a really good through trend. That, gang violence, and we look at Baltimore and some of the other stuff. Speaking of mental health, let's go to a little bit more of a rural area. Now, this one's really tragic. And, I cut up about these things, and it is sometimes just out of stress, sometimes out of frustration, because I do watch the stupidity go on. I spent 25, 30 years in public safety, working 911 calls, EMS, fire. I've seen what happened. Someone died because of what? Someone tell me why we're zipping this young kid in a bag. I've watched every bit of it. And so there is a little bit of a callous desensitization that's going on there. But this crap in Fargo, really interesting to read through the whole incident report, because you get taken back a little bit and you say, what just happened? What really just went on with this thing? And it's kind of crazy because law enforcement was working a simple wreck. Fire, law enforcement on scene. Vehicle drove past, a little bit past, pulled over. And suddenly an individual gets out of the vehicle and opens fire with a long gun. We ended up with one Fargo police officer, rookie officer, killed. 2 others wounded. One was his FTO, and one was another rookie officer. We ended up with a bystander wounded as well. The other rookie's field training officer, FTO, was able to engage the shooter, and among all the officers there, another responding backup, they were able to get the gentleman stopped. These guys were on scene working a car wreck with fire, minor MVI. This guy is not involved in the situation in any way, shape, or form, is not related to anyone involved in the wreck, is in no connection to anyone involved in the wreck, pulls up and just decides to open fire. Now, the gentleman with him had 3 long guns, one of which had a binary trigger, and we'll talk about that in a minute. He also had 4 handguns. He had over 1,800 rounds of ammunition. And, we say, oh, he had an arsenal. Yeah. He also had multiple explosive devices, including, grenades that he had manually put fuses in, 3 gas containers that were full of gasoline, and multiple old LP tanks, liquid propane barbecue cylinders, that were filled up with something that was explosive, filled up to be an IED. They had to be detonated by the bomb squad. His grenades had to be detonated and secured by the bomb squad. Now, you can say what you want about gun control. And yeah, we can talk about binary triggers, and we will a little bit. But the binary trigger and the guns, okay, 3 long guns, one of which had a binary trigger, and 4 handguns, none of which had it. So let's see what the bad things are here. Well, they're all worried about pistol braces. Well, this didn't have any pistol braces from what I can see. And the ATF is now all upset about binary triggers. That's another thing. Forced resets are binary triggers. Okay. The AR-15s, we know we're going to vilify those. So if we take all 3 long guns out of there, which would take the binary trigger and everything out, he still had 4 handguns. Well, we're going to worry about that 1,800 rounds of ammunition. Okay, fine. Give him 180 rounds of ammunition, 4 handguns, and oh yeah, a backseat full of bombs, a backseat full of explosives. He'd actually gone to the trouble of spray painting the inside of his car's back windows to black them out completely so no one could see what was in the back seat. Now, again, we want to say that we're going to address this violence, and we'll address this nightmare. We need to address the plague of gun violence. This gentleman was going to get violent with or without guns. This gentleman was going to get violent with or without, I don't know, I think one of the guns, one of the long guns, looked like an AR. It was kind of hard to tell. It was a modified platform if it was. Okay. With or without binary triggers or ARs or anything else, do we need to now put better barbecue tank control? Would that have stopped this? You guys got, explosive devices. Do we need to, do background checks on gas cans? And my point in this is not to make light of the situation. My point is, this gentleman in Fargo, North Dakota, who is no longer among the living, he was going to get violent. He was going to kill people. Gun or not, gas can or not, bomb, explosive device or not. He was going to get violent. Now, we can deal with the sickness and the mental health and whatever's going on there, but merely by taking the gun or the tool out of his hand or taking the binary trigger, we'll take that binary trigger away because that's a bad binary trigger. Okay, yeah, we could do all that. And do we think that would have slowed this guy down from killing people? No, he would have found another way. This gentleman had been planning it for a long time. He's a 37-year-old male. He had no criminal record whatsoever. He came to the U.S. from Syria back in 2012 on an asylum request. Now, when you think of what is an asylum request, He came to our country and said, my country, where I live, where I am a citizen of, is not safe. Please take me in as a refugee. I need asylum. He became a citizen in 2019. So by that point, you figure from 2012 to 2019, 7 years, he was a fairly stable, decent member of society, good enough that he was able to get his U.S. citizenship. But he's also got a search history in his computer that dates back over 5 years, looking for large-scale events, researching mass shootings, researching ways to kill lots of people quickly, things like that. He's Googling that at the same time that this country, the United States of America, is granting this refugee citizenship. We took him in as a refugee on his asylum claim, and the thank you that this country got was one rookie police officer dead, 2 other law enforcement officers wounded, and a bystander wounded. Now, I'm not trying to come down on taking people in, taking in refugees, not at all. We were perfectly nice to him. We got this back. I'm not saying that every one of them is guilty of this or every refugee is guilty of this. No, not for a second. What I am saying is if someone's going to go violent, taking the gun out of their hand ain't going to do it. He made, basically, for all intents and purposes, a huge car bomb. I mean, multiple grenades, big barbecue cylinders full of explosives. Yeah, it would have been interesting. Now, the other thing was he just happened up on this traffic accident. But from where he lived to where the incident was, the direction he was going, about 3.5 miles more, he would have been at the state fair. Perhaps he, decided to do this instead of the state fair. He was going to go do something bigger with all this stuff. I mean, you didn't do this. You didn't pack this load out for deal with 4 cops working on a motor vehicle accident. He was going to do something a hell of a lot worse. And by dumb luck, he changed his mind, decided to do this instead. It's awful. It's bad. My heart goes out to the officer who was, for the officer who was killed, his family, both, blood and blue. But my point is also, they are now, oh, well, he had AR-15 with a binary trigger. That's how this happened. Really? Really? No, that's not how this happened. Yeah. That's kind of like a plane crashes into a mountainside, and you say, well, honestly, I think this scratch on the windshield is what caused it. No, actually, I think that happened when the windshield hit the mountainside. That's not why the plane broke into pieces. A binary trigger did not make this happen. A binary trigger did not make this much more worse than it could have been. The guy only got about 40 rounds off before he was neutralized. So, yeah, he loaded up 1,800 rounds off and didn't even get 10% of it fired. Didn't even get 5% of it fired. But 2.5% of it. But be that as it may, we need to do something about these guns with binary triggers. That is what, unfortunately, the media and the politicians are focusing on, and the lawmakers and the legislative branch can focus on that. And all these other incidents here, you haven't heard the word binary trigger on. You can hear mental health. You can definitely hear mental health of that idiot riding around New York on a scooter. Gotta give it to him. It's not the guns. It's not the firearms. You've gone from Baltimore, New York, with some of the strictest gun laws out there, to North Dakota with a much different approach to firearms. And yet the thing is, we had 1 police officer killed and 2 wounded here. Baltimore, we had 2 dead and 28 wounded. Heck, New York, 1 dead, 3 wounded. And a ghost scooter. We can't blame this on guns. It's not a gun problem. There's some society problems. Yeah, I'll definitely go with that. I think we can address that, but it ain't a gun issue. Now, take a little palate cleanser and a little change of pace. You look at this guy. Wow. Now, I brought this out as a legislative alert, and I think we need to be wary of it. If you live in North Carolina, if you're an instructor in North Carolina, if you own firearms in North Carolina, if you have a CWP or want to get a CWP or may ever want to get a CWP in the state of North Carolina, need to listen up and listen real good. Came across one of the feeds I follow. There's some really shady stuff going on in North Carolina, and it's not with the legislature. They are trying to make it dramatically increase and make more paperwork for CWP instructors. And one reason this came across my radar is because, well, I'm not a North Carolina instructor. I'm a South Carolina instructor, but I know some North Carolina instructors quite well. And I used to live up there and I worked up there for a while. And although there's little differences in the laws and curriculum state to state, I'll share this with you. The required time in class, going in as an instructor, teaching the class, doing the slides, going over different things, teaching the legals. I enjoy that. That is a fun day, especially when I got a really good group, asking good questions, getting involved. We're having good discussions, going over the legal limitations, lethal force, all that stuff. I might have guessed, I can enjoy that. I became an instructor in firearms because I enjoy firearms. I also enjoy making that little light bulb go on top of someone's head. Have fun with that stuff. The most difficult and arduous part of my job is doing paperwork. Now, South Carolina's isn't too awful, but there is a lot to do. Well, they are in North Carolina coming ways to dramatically increase the paperwork requirements for CWP instructors. That'll not only make it harder to find classes, also make it harder to register for them. They're going to actually make the instructors submit class lists, course lists to the state 30 days prior to the class. Now, if I'm doing a class, and today is July 25th, that would mean if I'm doing a class on August 20th, say, and I've got 4 people who want that class and I agree to do it, and 2 of them cancel, okay, fine. And then 2 others say, well, I want to, get in on that class. Do you have any room? And I said, well, yeah, I got plenty of room. Classes now have to be registered and signed up for and sent to the state 30 days in advance. So it's going to make it a lot harder for people, your schedule changes, whatever else, to get into a class at the last minute. You got to register 30 days in advance. Not 29, 30 days in advance. Now, if it's something that you plan out and everything else, fine. But what happens if, we're going to use an outdoor range and it's cold and wet and nasty that day, and the instructor says, hey, let's put it off till next weekend. Under the current systems, we can all do that. Under the new systems, since it wasn't sent in 30 days in advance, you couldn't do it. So either go out, do it cold, wet, nasty in the rain, have a really, really negative learning environment, or you just don't do the class. It's going to make classes a lot harder to get. Putting a lot of extra work and paperwork on the instructor may get some instructors decide they don't want to teach that much anymore. If something becomes just too darn difficult to do, or they will do it, but the prices go up. If I've got to go through all that extra paperwork and put in a bunch of extra time and plan all this and send all this in 30 days in advance, and also more paperwork on the backside after the course as well. Wow. Is there a possibility that I may decide to just, and again, this doesn't affect me directly, but I'm putting myself in the shoes of a North Carolina firearms instructor. I mean, the folks who do it don't make a whole lot of money. I mean, we aren't getting independently wealthy doing it. That's for darn sure. Especially the ones who do small classes, do limited class sizes. We're doing it because we believe in what we teach. We're doing this because we know it's important. We do it because, hey, guess what? We want people to learn. We want people to learn safely. We want to make sure that our students, if and when they're ever involved in a lethal force encounter, know the law and that we've taught them the right thing. And we put a lot more time and effort into teaching the class and putting the class through than we want to do that. They don't all have a secretary or like 3 people in the office behind them doing paperwork. A lot of these instructors are doing it on their day off from their regular job, whether it's a law enforcement job or whatever else. But they're out there teaching people. Now, if they get this stuff through, which they're trying to, there's a meeting coming up, I believe, beginning of August. And again, to point this out, and it's real important, this is not coming through the legislature. This is not a law change. No. Much like the ATF with the little pistol brace stuff, where the executive agency is just sort of backdooring a bunch of extra rules and regulations that have never been voted on by Congress. Yeah. Well, it's coming from the North Carolina Attorney General, Josh Stein. It's what everyone I've talked to has said. And they pretty much asked me how my paperwork in South Carolina, what's my paperwork requirements? How bad is it down there? And I told them, I said, yeah, here's what we do. It's not great. It's not awful. A little bit of problems. I've got most of the forms saved on my computer. I can generate them through there. But if I didn't, I can have students fill out the forms in class and all that. Folks, all they're doing is making it harder for that instructor to run that class, trying to give that instructor a bunch of extra work to do, because maybe if they can get rid of, there's about 2,000 instructors in North Carolina. Maybe if they get it down to 1,000, they'll get rid of some of the CWP people. Instead of directly focusing on the weapons, because they know they're not winning any battles there in the legislature. No, the Attorney General is going to backdoor it and put this stuff in. And I will say this: if you're interested, if you are in North Carolina or involved in North Carolina, ever look at moving to North Carolina, I've got the website on there, grnc.org. That's Grassroots North Carolina. They have a very, very good website with a lot of information on it. Check in with them, see what you can do. And if you do happen to be in North Carolina and you're pro 2A, and hey, you say, I don't even have a, firearm, or I've already got my CWP, it doesn't affect me. Maybe reach out, get in touch with GRNC, or reach out to Josh Stein and let him know, he's probably going to be trying to run for governor here in a year or two, and let him know. Keep attacking firearms instructors, and your political career is going to be over. We're getting a little bit of political capital here. And again, people who are wanting to go through classes and do things the right way, we're going to put more and more hurdles on them. What about the ones who are doing it the wrong way that we see every week on this show? Well, no, they're going to be running around with ghost mopeds and binary triggers and all sorts of other crazy crap, and explosives in the back seat. But yeah, let's make things more difficult on law-abiding CWP holders. Reach out to GRNC. Like I said, I give them all the props in the world. They are, really the tip of the spear on this one. They're very familiar with it. They've got a lot of information on their website. May explain it better than I have. Again, the whole thing is, if we can take this much work and make the instructors do that much work instead, well, they're either going to make classes more expensive, they're going to teach less classes, or maybe get out of teaching altogether. Why? They're teachers. They're doing a good job. Is there a problem with the classes? If they wanted to say, well, you're not covering the right thing, or if they come out and say, we want more focus on this type of safety or something else, I'd say, well, okay, they're pushing safety. No, they're pushing, we want you to fill out all this extra paperwork and submit it and make sure it's 30 days in advance or you can't do the class. Really? Mm-hmm. They're just doing it to make it difficult. But that's okay. I think Josh Stein may find out what's going on with this, because I don't live in North Carolina anymore, but I've got quite a few friends who do. And I promise you I'll be reaching out to them this week and next week. So we'll see what we can do for Mr. Stein. maybe get him out on the golf course and retire him a little bit early. Now, another little bit of a legal thing to talk about, and I want to touch on this, and this is important. And this could be one of the most important parts of the whole show. And I debated doing it first, but being a good ambassador. And this is going to be something I'm going to push, and we'll hear it today, and we'll hear it again and again and again. I read a statistic the other day, and it was really interesting. Gallup poll back in 2022, said that 33% of the Americans, the citizens in this country, adults, own a firearm. 33%. Okay. About a third. 44% at least live in the house with someone who owns a firearm. So, okay, maybe the husband has all the guns, but the wife lives there. Or maybe they both have some guns. Or maybe he's got them and she's not interested, or she's got her guns and he's not interested. Whatever. But 44% of the citizens, the adults in this country, live in a house with a firearm. Rock on. And that's who will admit it. Remember, there are some people who I'm sure would not admit it, so it's probably higher than that. But let's go to the next phase. 30% of the people who answered the poll said we will not, under any circumstances, own a firearm. Don't have one, won't have one, will not live in a house with one under any circumstances. Okay. So there's 30% out there that they don't want to hear from us. We can't talk to them. They'll never change their mind. They know more than we do. They know everything. They know that an AR-15 is a military-grade assault weapon machine gun. They fully understand about what a semi-automatic revolver is and everything else, yeah. But 33% have guns. 44% live in a house with a gun, okay? 36%, and this is a big number, adults who currently don't own a firearm but might consider it. That's a bigger number than either of the other two. And this is where we talk about being a good brand ambassador. Those of you all, myself included, who are in the 2A community, who go out to the range, who might own a gun or two or 75, we have a chance right now to work with those 36%. And our goal should be, and look at future to future, year to year with the Gallup poll, how we can get more people out of that 36, because again, 30% ain't going to talk to us. How can we get more out of that 36% into our 33 or 44 crowd? Would that not be cool? We're seeing legislative victories. We're seeing in some areas, with a whole lot more states have CWP permit, shall issue states. We got a whole lot more states coming up with constitutional carry. We've got more states coming up with open carry. We are winning a lot of battles right now, very positively, towards improving the quality of gun laws. Now, personally, yeah, I get it. Yes, repeal the NFA. Okay, great. That's going to be the Super Bowl. But my thing is right now, we have been, as firearm owners, a team that has taken a lot of losses on the field for a long time. We've had a lot of garbage done to us by well-meaning but poorly informed politicians, well-intentioned but totally ignorant legislative personnel, media that misrepresents stuff every chance they get. And we're now getting to the point that there's hearings in Congress where you've got people like Brandon, the AK guy, going up there. You've got, can't think of his name, but Fudbusters, LaRosier up there. You've got people going to testify like John Lott from crimeresearch.org, Much respect to that man. I love his books. Use a lot of his stats in some of my arguments. Haven't checked out his website. Definitely well worth it. You've got people, all over the place. You were seeing instructors pop up, female instructors, steel and stilettos, a couple of other really, really great female instructors that are getting women involved in the shooting sports. Yeah, because it ain't an all boys club. Girls are allowed to play with guns too. Okay, just say it. I know I've got a very good friend of mine. She's been on the show. It's a female instructor. So we're seeing this growth of firearms instructors, trainers, USCCA memberships going up, other agencies, whether it's GOA or GRNC or Second Amendment Foundation or everyone, you know, we're seeing these things go, and we're winning some battles. And we need to get those 36%, as many as we can, invite them over to our team. Say, hey, look, I get you don't own a firearm, but if you're interested in learning something, if you're comfortable and you're ready to teach, great. Teach them, coach them, mentor them, bring them over. Invite them over to the family. On the other side of the coin, if you're a newer gun owner yourself, talk to them and say, hey, look, this is where I go and took training there. Do you want to come up there? We all know we're a little bit intimidated our first time going in the range, especially if we're going in alone. Bunch of loud noise around here, a bunch of weird stuff. Don't know exactly what these people are going to do. If you listen to what the media says we do, we're out there, throwing babies up in the air, shooting them like skeet or something. But we need to be winning that 36% into our club. Because I got news for you. Yeah, I joked before about repeal the NFA. You think if the U.S. had 68% firearm ownership, what do you think that would do for voting blocks? What do you think that would tell the people in Washington? 60 to 70% firearm ownership in the country. If we had 70% firearm ownership in this country, and let's say 50 of those 75% were CWP holders, what do you think? I mean, you think politicians wouldn't sit up and take more notice? And again, we also need to support the organizations. GOA, your state gun organization, Second Amendment Foundation, FPC, they're winning legal battles for us. All these organizations are taking on basically the preservation of the Second Amendment. And little by little, we're turning the tide and we're doing things right. And we need to get our numbers up a little bit more. I mean, I love the fact we got 33% have it, 44% at least have one in the house. So 44% have one in the house, 30% say, hell no, I'd never have one. We got 36% sitting in the middle and they don't understand. They don't know. Haven't really made up their mind yet. They're not sure. They'd consider it. Well, if they consider it, we need to win as many of those 36 into ours as we can get. Because you know what? If we can get those 36 into ours, we can basically work on getting some really good laws passed, some pro self-defense laws, some pro 2A laws, make things easier. Let the legislature and let the attorney general in North Carolina say, you know what? I messed with the gun lobby and I'm not going to do that again. And I'm not saying this because I want, people to be unsafe. No, I realize that what he's doing is going to push people out of classes. And that's all it's going to do is push people out of classes and push instructors out of business. Well, great. That's not positive. When it comes to being a good ambassador, being approachable to new people, being a resource. If somebody in your circle is new to the community, new to town, just moved in, invite her to the range with you. Hey, you never know. I know when I moved down from New York to North Carolina, there's a guy I worked with who invited me to the range with him. Gee, how only he would know how that would turn out 25, 30 years later. represent the 2A community well. And when I say this, I don't want to get preachy, but folks, if you wear a t-shirt that says, trespassers will be shot, survivors will be shot again, you know what? I know you're joking, or at least I think you probably are. And most of the guys at the range think it's kind of cute. And we can all get our laughs out of it. To somebody coming from a non-firearms background, you're scaring the hell out of them because you're what they've been told we were. And I know to you it's a joke, and to me it's a joke. Doesn't offend me, doesn't bother me a bit. I think it's cool. But think about it. 50% of the country thinks we're monsters. Well, not 50%. Let's say about 30% think we're monsters. They think we're psychos. We go out and we just shoot people for the fun of it. Had someone, I've got a Twitter feed, the Gun Club. They asked me what a gun club was all about. I said, well, it's about a podcast I do with information, education, incident information about what's going on around the country. And one of the response was, I figured it was just a bunch of redneck guys sitting around drunk shooting guns at each other. Really? Huh. No, the first times I've been called a redneck, actually the second time I've ever been called a redneck in my life. The other one was by a reporter in California who was actually called me an ignorant redneck. I said, oh, okay. Thank you very much. I'll take that one with pride. But again, represent the community well. Be that helpful person. If you get someone, again, if you're involved with the welcome wagon in your hometown, think about this. Invite the new people moving into the subdivision. Hey, y'all want to come see the range? I've got some guest passes. Talk to your local range about giving out guest passes to the new people moving into your town. Nothing else, you get a chance, go out, talk to them, shoot the breeze with them. They may have more guns than we do. Who knows? And if they don't, say, hey, you want to go out to the range? You need to know anything about South Carolina laws? I'll go over them for you, or whatever your state is. If they're moving, hey, we're a constitutional carry state, or we require a permit, but here's how you get it. Be that person that everyone can go to. Your friends, your colleagues, invite them out to the range. 36% of the people out there, 36% of the adults, say they'd consider owning a gun, but they're not really given a chance on it. Kind of interesting if you think it. No, that's about all I've got for today. Folks, please hit the like button, like it, share it, get this out there for people. I'm trying to build the channel up. Again, the more I can build it up, the more stuff we can do. Trying to bring some stuff on to get some more guests in, things like that. If you want more information on any of this stuff, you can check us out on Twitter, Facebook, the locals community. You can email me directly. If you're not seeing this on locals, or if you're not seeing this on Rumble, you can go check out the Rumble platform. We have a lot of stuff saved up on there. By all means, great place, get some information, find out more about different things. Also, if you have suggestions or ideas of people you'd like to see me have on an interview, let me know. We've got a couple of guys coming in. Primarily, I'd love to get in small businesses and give them the voice, give them the exposure to our community. I know that video has been viewed over 300 something times. I think it's great that here he was able to take a little bit of his time, give us some knowledge, and put it out to 300 something people. And it's going to go out there for them. If you're in the firearms business and you want to do this for yourself, by all means, let's do it. Anyone else wants to come in on a stream, love to have you. Check us out. Thank you very much. Y'all have a wonderful day. And folks, please be safe out there. Bye.